Hello, it's George from Australia, and welcome to Gaming My Whole Life, where I discuss everything video game related from past pixels to the birth of 3D until now. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Gaming My Whole Life. Today we will be discussing A Hat in Time. Now, this 3D platformer was actually recommended to me by a commenter, and I want to give credit where due. I'd like to thank JJ the Cat, who watched my Yooka Laylee video. So I'm a big traditional 3D platformer fan. I really love those old style games, and I really love Yooka Laylee, and I uploaded the world's longest review of it, where I'm basically talking about how much I loved it for like an hour plus. Anyway, JJ the Cat commented and said, hey, I should check out A Hat in Time. He thought that, if I liked Yooka Laylee, maybe I'd like this 3D platformer. And do I like this 3D platform? I actually think it is great. I think it is very clever. It offers something different, so it isn't just another Yooka Laylee sort of game. And that's what we're going to talk about. Now, look, if you're new here as well, friendly reminder, I know you hear this a lot from YouTubers, please subscribe. It really helps me out. I'm trying my best to reach 1,000 subscribers. But let's talk about A Hat in Time, because giggity, this game was actually awesome. So let's lay everything down first. As soon as you start the game, I'm gonna start having the gameplay footage rolling now. As soon as you start the game, you're controlling this little girl, right? She's a little fluff. She has her big hat, and she's just in a gigantic bedroom that is clearly a kid's bedroom. The first sign that this game is comfortable in just being an awesome, relaxing game, but also doing its own thing, is the fact that right beside you have a huge pile of pillows. I'm talking hundreds of pillows, and the game even has a diving board just so you can jump in there, right? So it's like, okay, cool, not needed, nice little thing. You look by the window and you're like, oh, holy smoke, I'm in space. It's like, awesome, I have this huge bedroom, I'm out in space. I'm on a spaceship or something. You go down the corridor, you have this long fancy carpet. As soon as you go into the main area, you can see a distant planet in the distance, and it's like, oh shoot, I'm a little girl, I'm a little kid with my own spaceship. Okay, that's pretty cool, whatever, You play around with the buttons, you have a double jump, you have a dive, whatever. You go into your first world, right? And what I always like as well is every 3D platformer has some sort of creative way to enter a world. So with 3D Mario, with Mario 64, the game which many look up to, that game had you diving into paintings. If you played Yooka Laylee or you watched my review of it, in that game you jumped into books where the book sort of ate you up, so anything was possible. And in A Hat in Time, how you enter worlds is you look through a telescope. So remember, you're on a spaceship, you look through a telescope, you look at distant galaxies and planets and whatever the case being, and then you sort of just teleport there by looking. So I think that's pretty cool. The first world that you get into is a place called Mafia Town, and it is actually hilarious, right? So Mafia Town is this poor floating island, right? Like, it's in the sky, but there's a lot of water everywhere. It's nice. The level design is pretty darn good. You have up, down, left, right. It's just like Yooka Laylee, where when you start, you can go in any direction. You can sort of get lost. So there's a lot of secrets, there's a lot of collectibles, and that's what you want, right? So the reason why Mafia Town is called Mafia Town is because the Mafia has taken it over, and this Mafia is, for the most part, the funniest, most polite Mafia you'll ever come across, right? See, firstly, half of the guys don't even attack you, right? Even though they're big and burly, they barely attack you, right? If you provoke them, they will attack you. Sometimes they go on the offense. What's funny though is the way the world feels so alive. There's graffiti by them everywhere, and when you talk to them, just the one-liners they say, like, one of the best one-liners which I read and which was hilarious, was you speak to one Mafia guy and they're just everywhere, right? And he said yes, and in his accent, he's like, Mafia explained to Seagull that fish belong to Mafia. Seagull ate the fish, so Mafia grabbed the seagull and punched in the face. You're like, okay, I thought this was a kids 3D platformer, but sure, we'll just talk about, punching a seagull in the face. And you just get so many little instances about that. But let's talk about more of the actual game mechanics. So, apart from the characters, which are really interesting, you go to different worlds, very good and so forth. What's fun is the hat aspect. So it's called a hat in time. You may have noticed our adorable little protagonist has a hat, right? Very cool. Within the game worlds, apart from finding, these little gem things that you can use to buy new moves, again, awesome. I love it. That gives you a reason to collect all the collectibles. There's different sort of collectibles. It's actually really good like that. But what's fun is in every single world you can find yarn and you can stitch yourself new hats. And what's cool about that is one, they look, very different to each other, so it adds some nice variety. But also every single hat gives you different abilities, different skills. So the starting hat, you hold down the right button and it will tell you where to go, which, let's be honest, we've all played a 3D platformer which lets you go in every single direction. And there's plenty of times where you're like, right, what was I meant to do? Where was I meant to go? You hold down a button, it tells you where to go. I think, accessibility wise, I think that's very smart. But then you get more practical hats. You get like a hat that lets you run fast. You get a hat that lets you become, which is my favorite, that lets you become a witch. You look like you become a little adorable witch. You can even, make a flask that you can just shake in your hands, a little pink flask, and you throw it and it explodes and it's all good. What's also very cool as well is you can buy badges in this game, right? So you may have noticed on our character that there's badges physically on the hat. What's cool is there's multiple badges that give you different abilities, and every time you select or deselect your badges, they always appear physically on the hat. Now, I know this is a small detail, but it really adds to the childlike innocence when you physically like who wears badges anymore? Like when I was little, that was so cool, but we just, it just fell out, whereas she's a little girl, she reckons badges are cool, and you know what, a hat in time makes badges cool. Makes badges cool. There's something satisfying about, no matter what hat I change into, that I've managed to sewn because I found the yarn, that you actually see. Sometimes I forget, oh, what badges do I have equipped? And I'll just rotate the camera and I'll see it, and they'll be handy. There'll be some badges that let you, go faster. There'll be other badges that might protect you from a large fall. You jump off a cliff, you fall a bit too fast. One of the badges lets you open an umbrella last second to stop you from crashing, or another badge, helps attract items to you so you don't have to walk straight into it, sort of, gravitize towards you. And the icon for that is actually a magnet as well, so that works out pretty good. Now, a hat in time is definitely a fan of the 3D Mario games, right? And doesn't even try to hide it, and it's not even a bad thing, right? Like in every single 3D Mario game, you enter a world, right, and you find the star. There's always a star somewhere at the start of the level. It'll briefly show you where the star is, so then sort of where you need to go. A hat in time does the exact same thing, but instead of stars, you have an hourglass. You hunt down hourglasses, and every time you re-enter the level, you can reselect a different mission, you get a different hourglass, and the world changes to reflect that, just like Mario. Even to the point which, when you at the end grab the hourglass, you know how Mario always floats there and spins around and then holds the star up and then, it sort of fades out or whatever. A Hat in Time Dead Set does the exact same thing. Again, it doesn't annoy me, it's very clear. It's a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek nod to yep, this is, one of the things that give us inspiration. And I think that's cool. It does enough of its own original content to not make you think, oh, this is a Mario ripoff. It's not, but I appreciate that nod. I also really like the visual aesthetics, the depth of field, the use of depth of field. The developers love depth of field, right? If you have it off, fine. You have it on low is pretty ugly, to be honest. But if you have it on high or the maximum, the depth of field is aggressive. It is super aggressive. Things in the distance are so blurred, and it will take a little bit of getting used to, even for someone like me who loves depth of field. Once you accept it, then it's just fun. Then it's just fun that in the distance, there's always something nice, glowing, blurry. It's not going to reflect the best graphics in the video recording, because it was really weird. I was able to play the game by myself on the maximum settings without the slightest lag or anything. But the second I started recording, then the recording was laggy, unfortunately. So I had to, bring down the graphics a fair bit to be able to record out a smooth thing. But if you get this on PC, you know, you're going to get even better graphics than what you can see. And we need to talk about the music. The music is wonderful. It isn't, in my opinion, as good as like Yooka Laylee. Like, I was obsessed with the music in it, but I don't think it's too far off either. Like, it falls in the realm of normally good enough and quite good, and it fluctuates between there. You have moments where you're like, yeah, this is quite nice. You have other moments you're not too impressed, but it never disappoints. It never disappoints, and at its best, it sounds good. I sometimes have the tunes just stuck in my head, actually, so it does a great job. Now, I've talked this up like this is a child's game, and that's because, hey, it's a 3D platformer with this cute little fuzzy girl and all that. You get hats, you get badges, you buy new moves, which is awesome as well. You find collectibles that you can take back to your spaceship. So it all sounds kid. But then there's little tastes of adult humor that progressively get worse and worse and worse. And by the end of it, I dead set don't know if I can recommend this game to children. I've come up with a theory that this is actually an adult's game masked as a child's game. You know, like, it's accessible and it's pretty, so, you know, kids will gravitate to it. But it feels like this game was specifically made for like people like me who grew up, you know, during the PS1 and PS2 era and so forth, and we miss a certain type of 3D platformer. It's like, right, if they're our target audience, they're like in their 30s, 40s, 50s and so forth, right? So we don't need to hold back. Let me give you a bit of a hint. Let me show you a couple examples. They're not really spoilers, just small examples of how, you know, the humor gets worse and worse and worse. And by the end, it's like, yeah, you know, maybe a 5-year-old shouldn't play this. So, so the mafia guy, you know, talking about wanting to punch seagulls in the face, this and that, and the other funny, wacky things they say. You know, that's just a tip, right? So, as is very traditional with all 3D platformers, there's always like a spooky Halloween themed sort of world, right? Like, it's tradition at this stage, and A Hat in Time is no exception. Love the graphics in that area, by the way. Like, you have the forest behind you, you have the flames, the depth of field works so beautifully. Like, I love it, right? I absolutely love the Halloween theme that they have for this game. Now, you come across this demon guy, right, who literally steals your soul, literally makes you sign away your soul, and you see like a 3D graphic of your poor soul going away. So he's stolen it, right? And, you know, he just openly talks about murder and so forth. And it's funny because he comes comically at you and he's doing the bad guy evil laugh, and he doesn't look scary. But the fact he takes your soul is like, okay, this seems a bit more mature than I thought. And then you find him in a tree, right? You find him in a tree house, he's sitting there, this is obvious. And he's just reading a book. He's just happily reading a book. And, you know, if you look at the book, you can't help but notice it says how to, and I'm just going to say end kids. But you can see the graphic for yourself on here. I laughed so much looking at this when he's just casually reading how to end kids. You know, he's just reading the book, you know, and it's like, that would never appear in like a normal 3D platformer that's actually for kids. And the scariest bit, now I'm not gonna lie, this bit actually scared me. I don't know, like, it does it so well. It like caused so much anxiety when I experienced this, right? So in one part, you get into this house, right? You're not meant to be there, and you sort of get busted. Now, I'm gonna stop talking for just a second, and I'm going to play what happens, and you will appreciate why just the use of sound and color and visual makes you so freaking uncomfortable. This would dead set scare children. Behold. How freaking scary is that? How freaking scary is that? Like, you know, when you have to make noise and you have to hide under the piano and she's, oh, like whatever that noise is, like, oh, and the colors change, like, it's freaking terrifying. Like, the anxiety just like went through the roof. I'm like, all right, I respect you, game. I respect you. And look, I have a lot more other examples. I'm not going to harbour on that too much. I just wanted to draw, you know, attention to the fact that, you know, looking at a distance, you're going to think, yeah, this is just for kids. And then you play it and there's so many little things that you're like, no, this is a 3D platformer for adults. And that's really cool. A Hat in Time is also really enjoyable in the fact that when you revisit levels, a lot of the times the camera perspective will change, and so then the actual game. So in one area, you know, you're on a bit of a movie set and it keeps the traditional 3D platforming elements, but you're on a set. And then when I revisited that world, I expected the same experience. And instead I ended up on a train where a murder took place, and then I had to figure out who the murderer was. So just like that, the experience has a good level of variety. This game is so comfortable in its own shoes as well, is that scattered, you know, in the spaceship, in the worlds as well, is you'll find seats. You'll find a random chair in different locations, and you can sit in these chairs, and then the world slows down to a crawl, a lot of the sound fades away, and the camera rotates cinematically. You know, it's a timeout sort of situation. Now, it doesn't do anything. You don't get extra health, you don't get extra points, but I love the fact that the developers were just so comfortable in selling their, you know, happy 3D world experience when they're not scaring you and giving you anxiety, that they just have random chairs so you can just sit there and they're like, bask in our world, enjoy. And also, this game features, out of all things, amazing artwork. Every time you enter a new stage, a new objective, a new world, you get artwork. And I'm just going to show you know the first one. This artwork looks really, really good. It has a lot of personality in it. The style reminds me of older artwork, potentially from the 90s. Maybe that's why I really like it. But it's noteworthy to point out. It looks quite nice. Now, there's only one thing which I'm not too happy about the game, so I want to give feedback since I'm sort of reviewing this here, is I'm not a big fan of the camera. It takes quite a bit of time to get used to. You can't really rotate the camera to look up for some reason. There's a dedicated up button, so it does take some getting used to when you're running into an area and you want to look up, not using your right thumbstick and instead pressing a dedicated up button. Once I got used to it, fair enough, but there was, you know, that transitioning period. And also, and this is a personal preference, this may not affect anyone at all, when you bring the camera close enough to the character, she becomes transparent, so then you can see through her. I actually don't like that. When I bring the camera up close, that's because I'm a graphics perv and I'm trying to look at details and get nice screenshots and so forth. I would like to zoom in and be able to see my character, but by default, the moment you zoom in, you know, she becomes transparent. And the camera does sometimes really fight with the environment. Like if you're in a closed up area, the camera goes really close behind you and doesn't really move. So there's been quite a few instances where I'm in tight spaces and I'm fighting with the camera. That being said, right, and they're very select situations. That said, everything else with this game, I'm super enjoying it. I highly recommend it for anyone who deliberately is after that traditional 3D platforming experience. And if you enjoyed Yooka Laylee, then this is a good choice for you. Or if you've already played A Hat in Time, you know, and you haven't played Yooka Laylee, I would recommend you go to the other side. In fact, linked below in the comment section, I will have my link to the Yooka Laylee one. It's the one that goes for like a whole hour. I'm just talking up the game because I loved it so much. I'll have each link to each other. But yeah, let me know down below in the comment section if you've played A Hat in Time, if you're a fan of 3D platformers, if you had even heard of this game. Are you also surprised at the sheer amount of adult nods and this and that, and like death is a recurring theme that they openly talk about in this 3D platformer? Yeah, let me know your thoughts below. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. If you're new here, friendly reminder, do subscribe, do help support the channel. I'm on my way to 1,000 subscribers finally. I'm very excited. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, you have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on where you all live on this big blue planet of ours. God bless you all. Take care. And I'll see you all for the next video here, A Game in My Whole Life. Alright, see you next time, gamers. Bye-bye.